Do you want more success, more growth, more results? Then it's time for the Boundless Success Accelerator from the Modern Observer Group. This isn't your average coaching program. It's where top performers come to dominate. Weekly group sessions, on-demand coaching, a community that's got your back, and a power-packed library of tools to supercharge your business and career. No more excuses, no more waiting. Get in, level up, and start building the life you've been dreaming about. Visit us at modernobserver.com/boundlesssuccess to join today. Let's get you to the next level.
Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric E. Lopkin, the esteemed one. And I know we talked about Biggest Losers, and we're not going to dwell on it, obviously, but I think there is one, we need to just touch upon this one more time. Dark Obama, he had some speech about being very condescending to the voter, for the voters, that obviously democracy is not important, blah blah blah. But out of all this, he's essentially relegated to irrelevant. Maybe a couple book deals. I don't know if that's even some Netflix bullshit, whatever. Now he has something about the maritime life and whatever. You agree with that? That he basically showed himself to be yesterday's news.
His little temper tantrum pretty much put the final nail in his coffin. He gave the speech at the Obama Foundation, talking about how dangerous it is when one side weaponizes the government to keep the other side out of power. Right. Obama's the one that weaponized. He weaponized the IRS against conservative nonprofits. He weaponized the NSA against our allies. He's the one that knew the Steele dossier was fake and said, go ahead, go to the FISA court and weaponize the FISA court by having them put fake information in front of the judge. Talk about hypocritical.
Yeah, he is one of the ultimate hypocrites, him, Hillary. There's a short list. He's also bitter, angry, because you've alluded to it many times that his legacy is in the shitter. And also, don't forget, he was probably one of the more divisive presidents in modern history. He's a Saul Alinsky a student, and he studied well. Race relations before his tenure were moving almost to the point of it wasn't even a factor, but he made sure he put fuel on that fire. I'm so glad his legacy is in the shitter because, like some people like Romney, whatever, they lose or they don't have a leg. They move on. They have a life. Hillary, Obama's, that every day it just pisses the hell out of him, especially losing his legacy once again to Trump.
Well, you also have to remember, you used Romney as an example. Before Romney went into politics, he had a successful career in business.
Yes, he did.
Obama did nothing other than his political career. Hillary did nothing other than her political career. I mean, these are people that, hitched their star to politics. And when they flamed out royally, this was basically the American people saying, no, you're not the person you think you are. You're a failure, at least in their minds.
No question. There's also a degree of irrelevancy, as we've talked about. Living in Martha's Vineyard and in Hawaii, and then you think you're going down to the hood and rapping with your bros, it doesn't work, and it blew up in his face. He essentially was talking to them like he they were subservient and just dumbasses that, hey, boys, do what I say. And that's not my words, that's people that were interviewed at the meeting or after the meeting. They actually used the now didn't use the N word, but said he's referring to us like, hey, ends, do what I say. And that's
Ex-
their words, not mine.
exactly. And, I think the perfect example of why it is so hard for Hillary and Obama to accept their own failure is the fact that all they ever cared about was their own power. And
Yes.
the perfect counterpoint to what they did was Jimmy Carter. Because Jimmy Carter, his legacy when he left office was he was one of the worst presidents ever. What did he do? He volunteered for Habitat for Humanity. He helped the poor. He went on to help more people after his presidency than he did as president. Hillary and Obama are incapable of that sort of generosity
A
and that
hundred.
sort
Well
of
done.
character.
You look at Hillary, and it's funny. Like Jesse Waters on Fox, when he refers to her, he goes crooked, and it's always her picture of her laying on the couch with a bottle next to her, and it's probably not so far from the truth. She has never gotten over this, or
No.
defeated, I should say.
And again,
And
it's
Obama hasn't either.
no, Obama has not gotten over the fact that Trump beat her and essentially erased his legacy then. He thought he might be able to resurrect his legacy with Biden, but I mean, I don't want to say Trump screwed that up again. I think Biden screwed that up all by himself.
Oh, well, I was thinking there's something very interesting about Biden because I do have a tremendous respect for Bill O'Reilly. He's not only a commentator, but he's a scholar, and I'm not saying that lightly. He is. He's written several books,
Yes.
very erudite on the subject matter, and he has a book recently called Ranking. Well, not called. It's about ranking the presidents, and he ranks Buchanan as the worst, which is true, essentially responsible for leading us to the Civil War, and he ranks Biden as number two. And I agree with him as well. And his thesis is amazing. And that is, you look at Hoover, you look at Carter. Let's just take Hoover, for instance. Yeah, he might have effed up the Great Depression, but he didn't cause it. Biden's all self induced. I think that is a
Yes.
very cohesive a viewpoint and a thesis. Your
It is
thoughts?
it is a cohesive viewpoint and it's shared bipartisan. I mean, I'm sure people will go, well, Bill O'Reilly, he's a conservative. Of
No,
course
no.
he thinks that. James Carville came out and said Joe Biden was the most tragic political figure in his lifetime.
Yes, and I think that
So
is really interesting because I wanted your comment on this. Um, I think I think he would have never gone down as a great president, but the last 2 years and the last 2 months, 2 months have just put fuel on the fire. He's basically abdicating any responsibility of anything.
now
Like
he
even Democrats are saying, "Who the hell is in charge here?" It's not funny. It's actually not funny at all.
No,
It's tragic.
he was never going to go down as a great president despite what some of his diehard fans kept pushing. His his performance in the debate ended that. It ended his legacy. It ended any chance of him going down as anything but, a horrible
And
president.
a clown,
And
a clown.
then he compounded it with the Hunter pardon and by essentially just abdicating the position, which I honestly think was his plan all along after he pulled out of the election. I think he had decided, well, once election day passed, I don't have to do anything anymore. I think he thought he would just let Harris do it, but she vanished off the face of the earth for a while also. And now Trump has essentially stepped in as president pro tem before
He is
he takes
absolutely
office.
He is absolutely that. And the other thing shows, the pardons and abdicating your final months as president shows what an SOB this you know what is, okay? He doesn't give a shit. It was always about him, and it still is. That, oh, I'm not going to be, looks like a little baby. I'm not going to be president anymore. I can't be president. So screw it. I'll just lay on the beach. Not that he was doing anything differently anyway, but he's not even faking it. Correct?
Yeah, I mean that's the big difference between this and the rest of his term. We all knew he was spending a ridiculous amount of time in Delaware on the beach. He officially took more vacation time than any president in history. But you
Mm-hmm.
always had Karine Jean Pierre going, well, yes, he's in Delaware, but he's still working. He's still getting
Mm-hmm.
briefings. He's still on top
Working
of
from home.
everything.
Yep.
Yes,
Working from
working
home.
from
Yep.
home. Now they've stopped pretending that, and he's just, out.
Yes, he's out. His legacy, and I have to really find this sometimes infuriating. Is these people we've been doing media for many years now, Doctor Lopkin, and it's like I'm thinking, who's not pushing back on this when these idiots say he's no, not legacy, what are you talking about, accomplishments, legacy? Are you like smoking pot or what? I mean, his legacy is in the trash heap. Even the New York Times said his dereliction of duty in terms of the border, it's more illegals have entered this country under his reign than ever. Ever.
Well,
I don't think he was
I,
ever in charge. I think he had, and I really do believe that Ted Cruz said this, and that is that he was never. This is like 3 years ago. He said this. He's out to lunch, and you have a bunch of 25-year-old, 25-something-year-old Lewinskyeites and socialists running things, and I really do believe that's true. I really do.
well,
Oh, we're always in charge, yeah.
there was a great quote earlier today. Yesterday, the Senate held a hearing about the border, and this was essentially a Democratic hearing where they brought Democratic witnesses to sort of polish up their image on the border. And
Mm-hmm.
Senator Kennedy described these witnesses as, I'm trying to remember the exact quote.
I did see
It
the
was
interview. I can't think of the quote, but to back
but it
up what
was
you're just
minor,
saying, it
minor.
was an electrocution.
Yeah. I mean, basically,
He
he said,
electrocuted him.
you know, they they all minored in puberty blockers. I can't remember what he said the major was, but these were incredibly left wing people trying to polish up what they did. Well, all I kept thinking was back when I was in college, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Hmm.
I took a course called audience research, and it was all about media ratings. And what that course taught me was you could use the statistics to prove anything you
Anything you
wanted,
want. Yes, I didn't
depending
take the
on
same class, but you're
right.
right.
As
You can
long
lie
as
with
you sliced,
statistics. Yep.
yes, you sliced it up in different ways, you manipulated it in different ways, you could make them say anything you want. And that's what the Biden administration has been doing with, oh, it's the strongest economy. Yes, because
Hmm.
there's one figure on page 35 of the report that shows strength, while the American people couldn't afford to buy groceries.
No question about it. And speaking of the greatest economy ever, the figures just came in from October. There's the big talking point was inflation's coming. Nah, not so quick, little one. It's roaring its ugly head again. Oh well, shucks.
Well, again, inflation never came down in the last four
The
years.
rate of growth did,
Yes,
but
the
but the
rate that
point
it
is
was
now it's back
rising.
up. Now the rate is back up. Yes, yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah, it was whatever it was combined aggregate, probably like 23% at its height, and then it went down to four, whatever. But based on the top, you're 250 pounds and you only gained 3 pounds in August. Guess what? You're 3 pounds heavier no matter how you
Yes,
slice it. But
exactly.
even now, the rate is going back up. So Biden has nothing to hang on to. Zippo, zero, zippo.
And no, he's going to be remembered as presiding over a dumpster fire, and
A
he's the
dumpster fire.
one that threw gasoline on it.
And you talk about Carter, the Democrats had to go into the woods for probably, I don't know, 15 years, at least after Reagan, maybe 20, actually. Yeah, 20. No, a good 15 years. Um, I think the Democrats, the way they're appearing, I don't think they've learned any lessons. I think they're going to go into the woods for I wouldn't be surprised 10 years, and that's true with the media. You'd think they would learn their lesson, at least chill out a little bit. No, they're doubling down. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. But the Democratic Party, I don't see them. You always talk about the moderates and all that crap, right? I think they're going to. I think they're so entrenched with radicalism. I don't see. It's like a heroin addict. How are you going to break the habit? I doubt. I'm very suspicious,
Yeah, it
very
it really
circumvent that they're ever going to do that.
it really depends on the next few months, because there are two people who are really standing out as potential leaders of the Democratic Party. Both of them are making an effort to be leaders in this party. And which one gets chosen is going to show where the Democrats are going to be for the next 10 years. Those two people are John Fetterman and AOC. If they rally behind Fetterman, they've got a shot at rebounding. If they rally behind AOC, they're done for another 12 years.
At least, yes. And something you mentioned that's very interesting. Fetterman, I think, has mass appeal post stroke, and I mean that in no disrespect. He's articulate. Do I agree with everything? But if he was in charge, okay, put it this way: if he was in charge, I could sleep like a baby at night, right? Um, if Mamala was in charge, I'd be, oh shit, what's going to
Yeah.
happen to my retirement? No, and that's just the truth. So yes, I do agree with that. And speaking of AOC, she commented on the subway case, the verdict, and she basically was saying that the Marine people like him make the subway less safe. I think that you talk about biggest losers. She's came out of that case as a loser. I think the biggest loser from that case was BLM. It was hysterical. I heard a commentator a comment on that they were protesting after the verdict, and it's like they didn't say this. I thought of this. It's like you know someone from the '60s, Haight Ashbury, going ahead in time and protesting. People might walk by them and actually laugh, get a kick out of it. People weren't laughing at BLM, but they had no crowd. People just like looking at them like, wow, you came coming from a different era. Only even though it's only 6 years ago. So your comment on that, I think the biggest casualty is certainly BLM, and then you also had Jamal Bowman. He was saying that he had some bullshit thing about right white race. He's finished too, but definitely BLM. The pages turned to quote the Obama campaign. Correct?
Yeah, Daniel Penny, who was on trial for the death of Jordan Neely, is in no uncertain terms a hero. And the
Mm-hmm.
fact that Alvin Bragg decided to go forward with this case shows how out of touch Bragg is. The fact of the matter is, Jordan Neely was listed as one of the 50 most dangerous psychotics in
Mm-hmm.
New York. You're talking about a city of over 8 million people. He was in the top 50.
His
He was
biggest accomplishment, by
Yes.
the way. There
He
you go.
was on drugs. He was mentally ill. And he walked into this subway saying somebody is going to die today and I don't care if I go to jail. Well, guess what? Somebody did die, only Daniel Penny didn't intend it. Daniel Penny was just trying to restrain him and stop him from killing anybody else. Black Lives Matter decided they had to play the race card and make this
It
all
blew up.
about race. It was never about race. And I
But
think
it
the
blew
most.
up. It's never about race anyway. But 6 years ago they had more than enough traction. Now it's like crickets, crickets.
It's more than just crickets though, because Black Lives Matter had planned to riot if Daniel Penny was acquitted, which of course he was. And the NYPD told them point blank, don't even think about it. We're not putting up with it. You will all rot in jail if you riot.
Wait, let me interject something. I want your opinion. Isn't it, referencing a famous book? Isn't it the tale of two cities? New York is headed in one direction, and Chicago, with their psychotic mayor, is headed in another. Isn't that correct?
Yes, it really is a tale of two cities. Eric Adams, over the past 18 months, has really started stepping up. He has said he will work with the Trump administration to deport the illegal immigrants that are draining the city of its people and its money. He has stood up to Black Lives Matter. And I mean, in case anybody doesn't know who Eric Adams is, he's an African American mayor, and he
Mm-hmm.
realizes that this is not a race problem. And making it a race problem only exacerbates the situation.
100%. And also, he's moving towards a more, which the Democrats have to do, a more sane stance on sanctuary cities. I think he sees a light. I think America sees a light. How do you like this one? I'd love your comment on this. These sanctuary mayors, governors, what have you. 6 years ago, they would have all the traction in the world. I think it's again cricket time. I'm dead serious. People's attitudes do change, and they have changed. Disco's no longer cool. Hate to break it to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's not cricket time. It's much worse than that, because we've seen over the past several weeks in Chicago citizens are
Hmm.
standing up. They've called for him to resign. And we're
African
talking
Americans
about,
too.
yes, we're talking about African Americans who were his base. They are telling him he is wrong. They are loud about it. They're not keeping this
They're
to
pissed.
themselves. Yes, they are angry at the results of these policies. And I think you're starting to see, yeah, we saw it in the presidential election. If you take a look at county by county, there is not a single
Not
county
one.
anywhere that didn't shift to the right. Or more accurately, in the terms of the most blue counties, shifted to the center. And that is why the Democrats have to do that, because their supporters, their voters, have already done it.
The thing that makes me happiest is the change of the African American community. I actually love it more than anything when I watch a YouTube video. I don't care how old they are, woman, man. I love it when you see them being defiant, saying, I've had enough of the reservation talk. I ain't taking it no more. And I think it's something the Democrats will have to contend with because I don't think African Americans don't like being talked down to, a la Obama or others, and they see what the Democrats are relegating them to, and they're not digging it. Am I not correct, Dr. Lobke?
You are correct, and that's something the Democrats have to learn.
They won't.
In his final speech, the outgoing head of the Democratic National Committee actually said the party has to double down on identity politics.
Oh
It's like,
yeah.
no,
Hmm.
this is why you lost. Nobody wants identity politics. Nobody wants to
Zero.
think of themselves as part, as just part of a group. But you also have to look at the 4 years under Trump. African American unemployment was at an all time low. Hispanic unemployment was at an all time low. Female unemployment was at an all time low. The only unemployment number that hit an all time low during the Biden administration, because they kept saying about the overall number was at an all time low. When you break it down demographically, the only group that really benefited was white men.
Yeah, do you know you have a very interesting point? I would like your comment on this, Dr. Lobkin. I believe the ultimate racist and the guy you worked with, the African American, I always forget his name. Anyway,
Charles
I like him a
Payne.
lot. Yeah. Anyway, he was saying the most racist people he's ever met is in New
Yep.
York, not in the deep South, because not they say one thing, but they what they really think, and that's more important. It's what you think. It's not so much what you do all the time. That's really more troubling. And what they really think, if you really want to get it right down to brass tacks, is they think African Americans and some are incapable without their divine intervention. And that to me is unbelievably racist and condescending. And thank God many African Americans have seen the light. People like what's his name, the Colburn, the congressman. I think he's part of a past generation, and they've
Well,
had enough.
this has been the problem since Obama took office. When the Democrats shifted more towards identity politics and more towards their condescension that, you know what,
Hmm.
we've been very successful. So now we're going to help you because you can't do this on your own. Bull. I know loads of incredibly successful African Americans, Hispanics, women. Success is not defined by demographics. Any demographic can be incredibly successful, and so many people are.
You know what the real point is? I believe Trump actually started it. How do you like this? It was growing anyway, but I think African Americans, other minorities have seen the light, and it's basically transcends all races, religion. Its success has become something they can't be denied it anymore. You can't hide it from them. You can't BS it from them. They want it. They don't. They know that the doles and the handouts is no way to live. As you said, they see others in their community and they're saying, "I don't give a shit about this BS. Get away from me. I want to have a part of the American dream." And you know something? It scares the shit out of liberal Democrats. Comment, Dr. Lopkin?
I think you're absolutely right. And I think the Trump campaign was instrumental in actually bringing this out because, and Democrats said this over and over again, when was the last time any national politician went to Harlem to campaign, went to these African American conclaves to campaign, even knowing he probably wasn't going to win the district? He went and talked to them, and that was the important part. Well, the two important parts was, one, he showed up, and two, he talked to them, not at them like Obama did.
There's another factor, and I like your comment on this. I think there's a cool factor. I think Trump, even though he's white and old, has street cred. Obama, even though he's black and not as old, has none.
No,
Hippo.
Obama
Zero.
Obama never had street cred, and quite frankly, neither did Trump until the Democrats gave it to him by
Thank
going
you.
after him with all of the nonsense
And the
legalities.
assassination,
The
and
assassin.
the assassination.
Yep.
When I heard these Africans, they were awesome. They were kidding. But they go, he's ghetto. Like,
Yes.
I mean, that's badass. They were saying that's badass. And when you compare that with and I believe Carville said this, the Democrats have a masculinity problem. I mean, I looked at stuff on the YouTube about a Democratic male hugging, really after really hugging.
Well,
I'll pass on that one. Thank you very much.
the Democrats have had a masculinity problem since the 90s, since Bill Clinton.
Yes,
Because Bill Clinton, let's face it, everything that is wrong with masculinity, Bill Clinton identifies with.
correct.
You know, and the left that was when you started saying, "Oh, the metrosexuals." And
Hmm.
yeah, you can't be overtly masculine anymore. It's like because what they did was they conflated Bill Clinton's version of being
Which is
him,
distorted.
yes, with masculinity. And that is not being masculine. I mean, yes, he is a male, but he's not a man. A man
No, he's a
doesn't
freak.
treat Right. A man doesn't treat women like that. A man stands up and says, "Yes, I did this. I'll take the consequences."
No question about it. And one other thing that I think is fascinating to me, we're both marketers at heart, that certain things don't age well. And I'm not saying I ever condone what Bill Clinton did, but it was kind of a good old boy, you're not getting really into the weeds. It was kind of like, well, I don't know, boys. And now, 25 years later, you're saying, I, people, not just me, are saying in the aggregate, saying, that's pretty screwed up. It's not cool at all.
Yeah,
Not you used to do the wink and the nod and oh, now it's like, buddy, you're a freak.
I have heard dozens of politicians who were active at the time of the Clinton administration talk about Clinton's policies and go, "Yes, he was good on this and he was good on this and he was good at this." Wait a minute, why did we fight him so much? Oh, right. Because he was a disgusting human being.
Yes, he was. When you have, I don't care about it. It might not be statutorial, but you are charged with overseeing a younger person, Monica Lewinsky. You got to be a real ass to do what he did. That's really not cool. If you want to have an affair, go have an affair with a 35-year-old reporter for the New York Times, whatever floats your boat. But you're taking advantage of someone, and I think you're sick. And I think his marriage is sick. I'm not a
And
therapist.
it,
I don't really give a shit about him,
and
but
again,
that's it.
the Clinton administration was where the divide in the country really started because everybody knew what Bill Clinton had done, and yet Hillary came out and said, "Oh no, he didn't do it. It's a right-wing conspiracy. It's all their fault. Don't believe your eyes, believe what I tell you." And that has been the playbook ever since.
But the master of putting fuel on the fire. Yes, the embers were heating up.
Was
Dr.
Obama.
Lopkin, thank you. He put not gasoline, he put nitro on it.
Yes.
Yes, he did. The great uniter. Speak now, going a little bit, let's just say more comical. The snub heard round the world at the Kennedy Center. Pretty funny, correct?
It is, and
And it
it
was not by chance. It was deliberate. It was obvious. Go ahead.
it actually falls into a series of events that people have started to wonder if Jill Biden actually voted for
Yes.
Donald Trump because you had the two of them talking very congenially in France, but anytime she's in a room with Harris, Joe Biden in a room with Harris, my God, the temperature drops 30 degrees.
At least, and even Joe, even though he's out there and blown out, He didn't acknowledge her. And, it's just one more, not that she needs any more. It's just one more nail in her political coffin. That is Mamala. She looked like the fool. She, just clapping. Everyone saw it. It was not just another disaster. And the so-called geniuses that talk about her flawless campaign and her political future, uh, yeah, she has zero political future. How's that? If she
No,
runs for governor of California, check please. She's finished. And because she's not particularly bright, and I mean that in all seriousness, she's got no. She'll have a couple speaking engagements, early on, then it'll fade to nothing. No one wants to see a cackling idiot. And the book deal will be her book will be Flip. You might be too young for this. See Flip Run. See Flip Run. There you go. I wrote her book for her.
there you go.
Very good, but it was very interesting. But on a more serious note, there is a new world order or new global realities. Not all, but some of it, I have to say, it's not by coincidence. I believe it's in part due to Trump and America reasserting itself. And again, you talk about the health of the Democratic Party or lack thereof. You can have Trump juxtaposed to Forrest Gump. I don't even know how you can describe Biden sleeping at the African convention and whatever. But there is a new world, the reality. You look at Assad gone, decline, precipitous decline of Iran. How funny is that? How interesting, I should say, is that a year ago, shaking in your boots, Iran, they have been emasculated. And I really do believe it's a new age of Israel. A lot to there, but your thoughts, Dr. Lopkin.
It is a new age for Israel, and as much as I would love to say it's because of Trump, it's not. It's because of Netanyahu. He is the one that took out Hezbollah. Assad had been using Hezbollah to protect himself. Russia and Iran were backing Assad. Iran lost big time when Hamas was decimated, Hezbollah was decimated. The Islamic Republic is being decimated. And that all came from Israel. Russia underestimated Ukraine. I think this could have all have happened much sooner had Biden not been doling out help to Ukraine in drips and drabs. If he had
And releasing funds for Iran. How do you like that?
Yes, and now it's actually come out that the Biden administration started releasing funds to Iran
How?
days after he took office.
I mean, and now and there's talk of them doing that in the Swan Song. Yes, totally, just a total dereliction of duty. And Bill, referring back to Bill O'Reilly, I will have to concur. Not that that means anything. Second worst president, and I do know history. Very, very interesting. Speaking of, and by the way, you're right. Netanyahu, talk about menches. Yeah, he has his shortcomings, but he basically said after October 6th that I don't really give a shit what people think. I got to do what's best for Israel, best for the Jewish people. And essentially, he did everything, that old adage, do the opposite of everything I've done. You'll do much better. He listened to Biden and said, "Yeah, I'll do the opposite," and it worked out in spades. And I think it's perfect timing because with Trump coming in, Israel's going to get all the support they need. Especially when you look at the ambassador to Israel, and I love what Israel did with the falling out of Assad. They moved and took strategic territory, you know, beyond the Golden Heights, and I think that's exceptionally awesome because that was the golden opportunity. I'm sure if they called Biden, they would no, or one of the 25-year-old, graduate students would have said, no, you can't do that. They didn't listen to anyone, and they took strategic territory, and basically no one's going to be able to have them take it back. How do you like
No,
that?
Biden kept trying to have Israel stand down. He kept saying,
Brilliant.
"We'll negotiate a
Yeah,
peace.
yeah.
Don't do anything. He didn't want them going into Gaza. He didn't want them going into Lebanon. And fortunately, Netanyahu and the IDF did not listen to him, because if they had listened to him, Assad would still be in power, Iran would still be ascending, and now Iran is in deep trouble. Russia's in deep trouble. Syria's, I don't know if it's good or bad yet, because the rebels are actually controlled
I
by
think it's good. I
Islamic
understand your
terrorists.
point, but
So
I
we,
do
we
think it's
have
good
to
because
see where it goes. But,
I think it's good. I think it's good because it's not perfect and it could go south, but I think you've disrupted, more than disrupted, the pipeline to Iran's proxies. You
yep.
might have gotten rid of the influence of Russia in that area. And I believe with Trump, not with Biden, with Trump coming in, I think he has the brains, the people around him to make something good out of this. How do you not kumbaya, but doing something that's good for Israel and America's best interest? With numbnuts in there, you're right. There's all bets are off. Who the hell knows? But speaking of Trump, I think that it's looking quite favorably, excuse me, to for his appointments. Jody Ernst basically gave the tacit go ahead to Gabbard, RFK, and Hegstadt.
Yeah, it looks like Trump is going to get his appointments through the Senate. And I think it's important because you have to take a look at where the criticism was coming from. I mean, Pete Hegstaff's, all of the accusations were anonymous. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
came forward to say, yes, he did this or he did that. No, no. They leaked it to the New York Times
A
anonymously.
credible news source.
So,
Yes. Okay.
right. Now, let's not forget this is the same newspaper that got a Pulitzer Prize for the Steele dossier, which they still haven't apologized for or retracted, even though the world knows it wasn't true.
May I ask you a quick question, please?
Yep.
We talk about biggest losers, not just from that incident or this incident, but don't you agree that over the gray lady has seen better days?
Oh, yes.
If they keep it
Yep.
up, they'll be in the same rack as the checkout stand of the National Enquirer and the Universal Globe, whatever it's called, with
Yeah,
aliens and whatever. Yeah, it's getting
they
there.
need to take their cues from the Washington Post and the LA Times, who both we went too far, we screwed this up, we've got to regroup. If they don't do, again, like the Democratic Party, if they don't do that, they're not going to survive much longer either. But getting back to the appointees, I don't think RFK ever really had
No,
that
no,
much trouble.
agreed.
But you take a look at Tulsi Gabbard, all of the criticism came from one person, Deborah Wasserstein. Now,
Oh,
Wasser,
Wasserman Schultz,
Wasserman, yes, Wasserman Schultz. Wasserman
a
Schultz is
genius.
essentially lives in the back pocket of Hillary Clinton, who never got over the fact that Tulsi challenged her in a primary.
No doubt. And by the way, Wasserman Schultz, if you hooked her brain up to a light bulb, not going to happen. There's no
and
juice there.
let's
She's a
not forget the
moron.
fact that Wasserman Schultz was head of the DNC and they got rid of her for good reason.
She's an idiot, and she also employed someone of very suspicious origins in her in her campaign, in her whatever, in her staff. Yeah, a real genius. And she has again the credibility or the she gathers much attention as a whatever punk rock reunion, probably worse. Um, and speaking of the legacy, how what do you think of the blanket pardons for Hunter and possibly others? There's a New York Times, to quote the New York Times again, they did a survey that only 2 in 10 approve of that. That's pretty dismal, isn't it? Not another good thing for the big for the big man for his legacy. The big guy.
No, well, if Biden actually issues these blanket pardons, one, it's going to tank whatever little legacy he might have left. That's
It's like tanking the
basically
Titanic,
right.
Doctor
It's
Lobster.
basically going to send the ship sinking even
There you
faster.
go. Yes,
But
there you go.
it's
Perfect.
also going to tank the Democratic Party because people realize if you're issuing a pardon, it's because you know there's a crime to be pardoned that you don't want people to know about. Well, by issuing blanket pardons, you're essentially saying, oh, well, yes, the entire January 6th investigation was corrupt. All of
Well,
these
wait a second.
Democrats.
Doesn't it really go back to Obama's Defense Secretary Gates when he basically in his book said that he's been Biden's been
Biden,
wrong on everything, and even Obama said never underestimate his ability to f things up. He's just a walking. He's always been a moron, and now is a moron on steroids. Again, do you really want a blanket part? If you're like
you
Fauci,
know, you
you
know what
probably don't even
though?
want one because you're like, whoa, I don't want to be thought of as needing one. You genius.
Right. You know what though? I'm not so sure this is just Biden being incompetent. I honestly think he is trying to tank the Democrats because he is still pissed that they forced him out of the election.
I actually believe that I. Oh, I'm one of your biggest fans. You are the doctor. I don't think he's bright enough. I think he's just blown out, and I think he's scared because doesn't want. He's scared of the retribution, the possible retribution of uh, of the Trump administration in terms of judiciary people. So he's, his brother. It's a crime family. They know that it's
Right.
ridiculous,
And
but
and
it
yet
definitely. Go ahead.
and yet Trump has repeated over and over that he's not going to go after these folks. He's not going to be vengeful. He is going to focus on making America successful. That's what he considers his revenge. So these folks really, unless they've done such horrendous things that even we haven't figured it out, they don't actually have anything to worry about.
It's a Democratic playbook. Liberal. It's you don't have anything to stand on. You have no accomplishments. You have no game forward. You just like Russia, Russia, Russia. It's
Yep.
all smoke and mirrors. They know nothing else, Doctor Lopkin. No one's going after Liz Cheney. No one. She's irrelevant. Okay, forget it. Let her just twist in the wind, as Nixon
Actually,
used to say.
actually, I think you just hit on something. Yes, Liz Cheney is irrelevant. Most of these folks are now irrelevant. I think hanging on to this stuff, they're trying to pretend that they matter.
I think you're correct again, Dr. Lopian. 100%. It's a feel good. It's a feel good placebo. How do you like that one? Speaking of revenge, we have the CEO spoiled brat killer who had said in his manifesto, grandiosity, please, that he called the CEO of United Healthcare a parasitic, bean counting bottom feeder. But what's really twisted is the reaction of Democratic psychopaths, liberal psychopaths on social media. Pretty twisted. Even Pocahontas basically having nuances about killing someone.
Yep.
So yeah, although anyone who says although you're a great guy, Doctor, I mean,
Right.
you're really not a great guy. I mean, it's like although it was tragic, it does put the focus. Oh God, she's a nutcase too. And talk
Yeah,
about irrelevancy. She's done.
there
Goodbye.
is no excuse for trying
None.
to justify murder. It does not
Murder.
matter. Even as we talked about with Daniel Penny, he did not want to kill Jordan Neely. He regrets that Jordan Neely died. He did what he had to do, but he certainly did not want to kill him. The fact
Correct.
that these folks are not only trying to justify the murder, but now security is being tightened up with all of these insurance companies over the past week. Every insurance company has deleted the names of their officers and employees from their websites because they are terrified that this trend is going to continue. And you
Well,
have
can't it
people.
go into other corporate figures too? Like who's not to say in life insurance companies
Yeah,
or drug how about drug companies? I mean,
yeah,
you let the genie out of the bottle, and you're
exactly.
getting
This
encouragement from psychopathic liberals and idiots like Pocahontas. If you're a psycho, everyone wants their 5 minutes of fame.
exactly. And
You're a hero.
there is one meme that is circulating that reached the insurance companies and it is terrifying them. It simply says wanted dead or alive with alive crossed out. And it is the photos and names of high level executives across the insurance industry. So people are literally calling for these people to be murdered.
Wait a second. Aren't they the philosophy and party of peace and love?
Yeah, so much for
Maybe I
that.
missed
I mean,
something.
well, I mean,
They
take a
really become a hateful, spiteful, mean party. Obama, all of who Nazis. Like who calls you? I mean, now it's acceptable. Hitler, really Hitler? I mean, these people are insane, and they know nothing. Speak about business, they know nothing about business, and that's reflected in the. I think it's the largest supermarket merger. Pretty interesting. Shed some light on some things, doesn't it? Including a total uninformed and lack of knowledge on what gross and net revenue
yeah.
is. But that's for another day. Go ahead, Dr. Lopkin. Geniuses.
Yes, the supermarket chains of Albertsons and Kroger's were negotiating a merger, and the Federal Trade Commission decided to sue to keep it from happening because they thought it it would give the chain too much power. Well, the justification used by the supermarkets for the merger was they needed the additional buying power to compete with Costco and Walmart. And a judge in Oregon, and I don't think there
Oh,
are any,
surprise.
right, I don't think there are any centrist or right wing judges in Oregon at this point.
I think no one's sane. Yes, go ahead.
The judge in Oregon said, no, we're denying your merger request because supermarkets don't compete with Walmart and Costco. They don't compete with big box stores. Now, speaking as somebody who does 90% of their food shopping at Walmart and Sam's Club, which is just like Costco, yes, the supermarkets are competing with them and they're losing.
Yeah, but how? What's the chances? You're not a gambling person, neither am I. I will put $100 on this judge from Oregon. What's the chances that he's ever really worked outside the profession of either politics or law? How does
Oh,
zero
never.
sound?
Yeah, zero.
Never, ever, 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 ever.
And
Yes, there you go.
in the decision, they were talking about the profits that Albertsons and Kroger's has made, but they kept quoting gross profits.
There you go.
Now, in case we have a very intelligent listenership, but just in case somebody tuned in that doesn't know what gross profits are, this is how much money a company makes before expenses. So
There you go.
before labor costs, before the costs of buying supplies. In the case of supermarkets, before the costs of buying inventory and food. In actuality, the margin that these supermarkets are, well, have been operating at used to be 2 to 3%. Over the last few years, it's been 1.5%.
Yes, but we talk about price gouging, don't you? The
Yes.
mean old. Yes, they're. And let me just say this: I'm sure this judge, I'm assuming, probably went to some prestigious school. I have no idea,
I don't know. Yeah.
how or whatever. But no, but That I still remember that from that's accounting 101. Boy genius. I mean,
Yeah,
this
well,
is like high
clear,
school accounting. Hello, hello, McFly,
well,
genius. But if you've
clear,
never worked,
clearly math is not her strong suit. You know.
there you go. Well, our strong suit is getting to the issues, just like our name conveys, carnivore. And for our listeners, Dr. Lopkin, they can help contribute to the show, can't they?
Yes, let's hear what you have to say. What issues concern you? What do you have to think about the issues we've been talking about? Contact us at xvadio.com/connect or go to the Carnivore Radio Facebook page and message us there. You can also comment on specific episodes on the Xvadio YouTube channel and Rumble channel. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Bites at xvadio.com, the Carnivore Radio website, the Apple Podcasts app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Audible, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lopkin. Great show, and I'll see you next week.
We'll see you then.